Good afternoon and welcome to the car design webinar from Luxoft. This afternoon we will be talking to Luxoft on the fact they will be talking to us about the mobility revolution and enhancing the relationship with your car. They are talking about the autonomous era which is coming towards us and shared mobility and many of the hot topics that the industry are all talking about at the moment, and they'll be looking at it from the point of view of a global IT service provider. Their company has arms in many areas, all of which come together just to form the new era of automotive UX and relationships. The webinar will be presented by Olaf Preissner, who's Luxoft's Head of Automotive and Innovations, and Kevin Wick, who is their Executive Creative Director. And I'd like to hand over to Olaf to start off.
Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome everybody to this webinar. I'm really proud that I have the chance here to present the newest topics about the mobility revolution. So my name is Olaf Preissner. I'm since 2012 at Luxoft and responsible for all UX related topics. I'm based here in Stuttgart, and I will do this webinar together with Kevin. And Kevin is in Seattle. Hi, Kevin. Maybe some words from your side?
Yes, I'm in Seattle. So I run the design department for Smashing Ideas, which is the kind of like strategic and design arm of Luxoft. So glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So what we will do, so we have here our agenda, and when we comes to the sharing economy, so I will start with the major digital trends, what we see about digital lifestyle, electrification, and when we come to the sharing economy, I will hand over to Kevin, and he will give here some deep insights, what's going on with the mobility as a service, and so on. Then I will follow up with autonomy, and at the end, mixed reality in automotive. So this is quite futuristic stuff, what I would like to present here, but quite interesting. It gives a little bit an outlook where we are going right now. Interesting is right now, that we have a lot of devices on our world and they are connected, right? And so what we see right now, it's like a nervous system, what is right now growing. The digital or the digitalization, of course, it started 50 years ago. But what we right now recognize that it's much more efficient, much more faster, and as a really big reason, really cheap to get this connectivity together. And therefore, yeah, what we see, we are becoming such kind of multicellular organism. And this, of course, gives a lot of possibilities when we are looking at the car manufacturer industry, so the mobility revolution. And when we are looking what's going on right now here in this different areas. And I'm personally also have right now a lot engagement also with China and also with US, so all around, all over the world. And here is really visible that it is changing right now. The car manufacturing industry is really changing. And we see four major trends what will influence our life or how our life will influence maybe the car industry. And this is one item is here the digital lifestyle. The other one is electrification. It's right now a big hype, of course. There's a big pressure, for example, in China, when you are in Shanghai, you don't see any more a normal scooter. There are only electrical scooters on the street. So also from the government, there's a quite big pressure to push here the electrification. I expected also this will come not only for China, also here in Europe and also for US. Then we have the sharing economy. I think this is also a big trend here in lots of area, and this will be also influence in the automotive industry, the automotive market, and of course the autonomy. Autonomy, I think it maybe took a little bit more time that it will be realized, but partly autonomous driving is right now on the road. So we see there's also big pressure and a big effort also from technology standpoint. There's a lot of things ongoing. So therefore, I expect also a lot of progress here in the next couple of years. And all of this 4 trends, of course, influences the customer experience here. Not only the user experience, it's really the customer experience. And where we are coming from is from HMI, how to build up such kind of user interfaces and how to interact with such kind of systems. And here we see a lot of new opportunities, and also, of course, challenging, right? Challenges how we have to solve here. And it is also a kind of that we not only have anymore only a product, right? So that the car manufacturers selling a car and that's it. No, it's changing. So it's, I think, from product to relationship, right? So it's not only, that the company sells some kind of products. No, it's, it begins when they're selling some product. Then it begins, and it's then more an holistic view and an holistic brand experience there. And of course, it has also something to do with data. Data are really valuable, and data are money. And of course, everybody would like to have also this value chain here. And the car itself and produce a lot of data also in the future, when we are thinking about autonomous driving, when we are thinking about different mobility services, when we are using then the services and we produce there, or everybody from us is producing data where we can use. And this, of course, to help also to engage and to improve the user experience here. So therefore, we are focusing on the user and customer experience. Let's start with the first trend. What we see, it's a digital lifestyle here. And I like here this picture. It shows how the automotive world and the apartment or the living room, the space coming together here, right? So in the background you see, and it was an project from Hyundai. What they presented here, when the car is driving and it docks on your apartment, it's not a separate garage, it's not a separate product anymore. No, it's connected here really to your living room, and it's interacting also in this kind of way. And what I would like to show you is some examples, some practical examples. So not only from the bird view, not only on the other hand, I would like to go a little bit deeper so that I can transport it a little bit more. What does this mean? How this influences the digital lifestyle? Of course, right now we are dealing with our smartphones and also our smart homes. And for us, it's absolutely normal that we are using Spotify and Netflix and all of the other applications. But for the car itself, right now it's quite brand new, right? So the connectivity, it has already started, but it's not on a really good level right now, the integration part and so on. But I expect from technology perspective, connectivity and so on, there will be much more improvements there. And what we have done here, for one example, and I all the time refers to some practical example, what we have done, so that's more clearer. What we have done here is one project, it's called Lucy. So it's also a user-centered design approach here, prototype what we built up about how we can transform this consumer world in the automotive world, and also concentrate about the needs, about the customer needs, when they are dealing with different requirements or needs and what they are already using while they are smartphone, for example. And here with this Lucy, by the way, it was also the winner of the Car HMI Award for the most user-friendly HMI. What we got here, it was also quite nice to get here some neutral feedback also from outside. So it's all the time also important from our side. And what we have made here, you see also it's a portrait format. So it's also some kind of smartphone landscape here, what we used here, aspect ratio. And interesting here is it's about this widget concepts here, that you are really flexible and that you have such kind of personalization. So you can adjust it like you would like to have it. You can adjust the widgets here. You can have 6 one or only 3 one. You can adjust it in the size here. You can also switch it away. So when you don't need it anymore, or when you would like to have a full screen mode, so then you can also switch it here to the right side. So you have the completely fully flexibility, and on the other hand, this personalization. And we have also integrated here some kind of personal assist, so like such kind of avatar. And this was one focus, also to transport here the personalization and all of the different applications, also what we need while driving or what the user expects while driving there. And about this personal assistant, so there's here one example what I would like to explain how it works. So it's when you are hearing music and there is maybe some kind of concert nearby in your location, then you get here some kind of information here on your screen and your hint, and you can go directly then here to this here concert, more detailed information. You get all the information here together from your calendar, from your navigation system, but also you can book it here directly. So, and what is the advantage when you are in the car and maybe this semi-autonomous driving and you're using your car, you have in this case a really big display. And this is a little bit, or not a little bit, it's a big difference here to the smartphone approach, right? You can show different information, collect them together, and bring the best value here to the user. So this is one example what we have done here with our Lucy concept here. And when we are looking a little bit about the different customer expectations, what we see, what will coming up for the next couple of years here, and this is also quite interesting. So there will be different areas what we are right now looking for. It starts with this multigraphy coming up to this down aging. So the people are feeling much more younger, right? They are old, but they are feeling much more younger. And you have also to take this into account when you are designing such kind of user interface or customer experience there. Then we have the family 2.0. That's also about how you deal during your lifetime with your family. It's not only to build a van or some kind of SUV to make more space there in the car. No, it's completely different. You have to think about also different mobility services, maybe what the family needs during their different periods of the family, or this neo cities here in this in this area. It's about the green cities, right? So how does this influences? Kevin will later on go a little bit more in detail about this. Then we have the greenomics, also quite interesting. I would like to show you later on an example here. They are really focusing also on stuff what they believe and what they really would like to take into account on the ecological perspective, right? They have money, yes, of course, but they are focusing on other values, what they are interesting. Then we have the new luxury. So this will be also such kind interesting, or this simplify. It should be efficient here, simplify, simple to use. And the technologies should be also not visible here for this kind of customers here. Or the deep support, for example, it's about microservices. For example, microservice when you are driving between work and home, that you use maybe different microservices here. Or this cheap chick. It should be payable, of course, not too expensive, but on the other hand, it should be exclusive and luxury. So you see that it's a wide range here of new customer expectations what coming up, and this will influence or give us the chance from HMI perspective also to get here coming up with some really nice and good solutions in this direction. So let's focus for one example for the greenomics, so that it's not only theoretically, so that you see also a practical example here. So the greenomics, as I said before, it's about yeah, they are closely linked to resources conversation here, and about protect the environment, right? And they are absolutely well informed also about what does this mean to use this mobility, but they are looking for innovative solutions, right? So this is really important and in the focus. And they have a really focus here on the healthy and the pleasure-oriented lifestyle. As I said before, they have money, yes, they would like to spend it, but they would like to spend it also for healthy or pleasure-oriented lifestyle there. And of course, really important, this ecologically correct, it should be, right? And what we have done here, for example, here, it's also based on the Lucy concept, that you see such kind of suggestions here from the personal assist about a dinner, for example, here. But on the same side, you are connected really to your smart home, right? You have the information here. What is on your fridge here? And you get here some suggestions from the personal assist. It depends on the season, of course, or on the specific day, or on your mood, and therefore you can select here. And it's like it helps you to decide, let's say in this way. And you get the information, of course, what is inside in your fridge, what is about the CO2 savings, and what is about the health status, right? It's a combination of different values. And these values came from a lot of sensors and will combine together. And on the right side, you see then a live picture from your fridge, right? With all the information about how long you can use here your stuff. And it could be that it's, it's like the salad here, you have to consume it now. Otherwise, it's not anymore usable. And when you selected also your menu, what you would like to cook in the evening, then of course you get also the information. Okay, here the black beans is not in the fridge or not in your not at your home, and also for example the apples are not there. So then you have to check. Okay, I have to buy this. I will select this, and you get then here on the other side on your instrument cluster your information. Okay, where are the possibilities? So let's go a little bit closer here. Where are the possibilities on the left side about the different stores? And on the right side, you see, okay, you can select the black beans or the apples. Are they there? Are they not there? And you see also at a quite nice overview, okay, where I can buy this nearby, right? So you are interested also about your mobility services, that you focus on this ecological direction. Then you can really decide easily, okay, this I would like to drive there, and I got this stuff then here in this store. On the other hand, of course, this kind of greenomics, this customer are also interested, deep interested, where are coming my stuff from? When I'm buying here this black beans, are they coming here nearby? Is a regional product, or come this maybe from here from South America here with the airplane? So all of this information, they are available, right? That they are available, and we can collect them all together and bring then additional value, and really this information on a nice HMI, on a nice way, graphical represented way, that we can help then the new customer, the new people to get some decisions, right? To get to some decisions. And this is one example what I would like to share with you when we are looking about how this influences the user interface and our business there. And this is only one really piece and one detailed example, but to show it on a practical level there. When we are looking about electrification, of course, there's right now a lot of things ongoing, and all car manufacturers working here with high pressure on this. And of course, also next year there will be a lot of new models coming on the market. So it's quite nice to see here and quite interesting. And when we are looking, okay, what is when you are driving an electrical vehicle, and right now, and I think also in the next couple of years, it seems it's depending on the technology that you have some special needs, right? So the driver right now have really here some needs for information, and right now it is about the distance. how far you can drive with your car with your battery power here. And this is also some kind of, what you have to take into account when you think, okay, what are the expectations, or what is the needed information from this client, or from this driver, for electrical cars. So therefore, we also make some concepts here, and this is about trust, right? How can we transport the trust to the driver? Okay, everything is fine. You get all the information you need, and this is your information when you are planning also a long distance route, how you have to drive, how you have to deal then with this or with your electrical vehicle. And therefore, it's also here a simple example how this could be also in your system. It's about to show the distance, the range where you can drive, and also then when you have a long-term ride, that you have then also the possibility to adjust here, um, your distance here when you have a charging station in between, and you see directly about the charging time and the distance, how this influences each other. So also a quite nice and important information, additionally with the type of connectors, about the price information, and so on and so on. All the informations are there, but this has to be collected, right? And then you have a transparency, and you can also transform this information then to the driver, and what he really needs there. It influences also the instrument cluster when we are looking here at this example. So it looks completely different than a normal classical instrument cluster, what you right now have on the screen. Here is the focus really about your charging stations right now, and your range, what you can drive. You see you have this kind of sport mode where you can drive 98 kilometers. And when you extend it here to the eco mode, then you have here this additional 22 kilometers where you can drive. And all the time you see here your charging stations, the amount of charging station, and so on. So this is something also about trust, right? The information what the driver really needs right now. Of course, it could change when the battery technology is improving there. But right now, we think there is a lot of possibilities, especially with digital instrument cluster, to transport this information then to the customer, and have here and generate a really good and nice user experience there. So let's go to the sharing economy. So I will also share my screen here to Kevin, that Kevin give us here more information about what's going on, shared economy and mobility.
Okay, great, thank you.
Welcome.
So let's get started here. So when we talk about the sharing economy, a lot of times what we are really talking about and thinking about is sharing things that aren't necessarily ours. And so we start talking about services like Airbnb, where we're sharing living space. You know, it happens to be our living space and we're sharing it with somebody else. We think about WeWork, which is sharing workspace. And this is where some space is being provided to some workers. So it's not the workers sharing it to other workers. And we think about work itself. There's things like TaskRabbit and Upwork and other services that also allow people to share their work and share their services. And then things like Rent the Runway, where we're sharing clothing. And again, there's a mix of sharing things that I own and sharing things that a provider is providing to me. For today's talk, of course, we're going to be talking about, vehicles and cars in particular. So the big, behemoths on the street are Uber and Lyft, right? Everybody knows about these two. And we're also going to be talking about Reach Now. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit about Reach Now and what we've learned about Reach Now. We did some work with them. And Car2Go, there are a bunch of other services. There's Maven, there's Zoom, there's Movable, Lime, Drive Now. So there's a bunch of, emerging services that are coming around in the vehicle space, sharing economy. When we talk about sharing economy in terms of transportation, we often are talking about mobility as a service. So what do we mean by mobility as a service? And we look at it from two different perspectives. One perspective is the user perspective. That's the driver or the rider. And defined that way, it's about not owning the thing, not owning the means of transportation that you have. It means having somebody else provide that means of transportation. From the provider perspective, it often means creating a platform, a seamless platform that connects multiple different services into one seamless experience for the end user. So what is driving these trends to go into this ride sharing? And it's really about costs and convenience. So those things can like getting into finding parking and finding availability of cars, and doing things like saving frustration and time through not having to do a lot of the work yourself. There's also price things like not having to spend the purchase price on a vehicle itself, and then the insurance and the repairs and maintenance and fuel and all the headache that goes along with all that. And these obviously come about in congested cities. That's the place where these things are coming up most often. So when we look at like mobility as a service, it's often linked to creating, green cities and reducing carbon footprint. And while these things are, potentially and conceivably true, they tend not to be the real drivers of what, makes people the riders and the drivers of the car sharing services, really choose to do that. They happen to be enablers to make them feel good about what they're doing, but they're not the real drivers. Nonetheless, as designers, we should be striving towards reducing things like carbon emission and going towards these green cities. So if we want to have mobility as a service really help out in creating these green cities, there's a bunch of different complex factors that go into making this a reality. So the first is governance, and this is really how do the different services come together and work together, especially public government services with private companies. Technical interoperability, so being able to have different systems and applications talk to one another and work together. Data strategy, so as Olaf mentioned, there's a ton of data that can be generated and captured through vehicles and transportation. And so having strategies that make sense for the collection, the storage, and especially the sharing and the privacy of that data. There has to be a certain amount of profit opportunity for private companies to really get invested in this. And so currently it's a open question about whether companies like Uber are eventually going to become profitable, but there has to be some amount of opportunity for these companies. But lastly, the thing that I want to talk about is really about the adoption. So if drivers and riders don't adopt, if they're not encouraged, if they're not enthused about partaking in these services, none of the mobility as a service is going to flourish. So then that brings the question of what is the role of design? And so that's the question I want to address right here is what must design do to make mobility as a service succeed? And for me, it really comes down to really one big idea, and that's being a choreographer, being a conductor, bringing together an understanding of all the different actors. So when I say actor, I mean the drivers, the riders, the providers of the transportation, the administrators of the whole service, everybody who's in the ecosystem. So understanding all those different people and their perspectives and their needs, and then using that to generate solutions that puts all those things and all those needs together in a very well choreographed and harmonious system. So what are the tools that we have to use as designers to make this happen? One of the strongest tools is a framework of thinking called design thinking. You may be familiar with it. What's on screen right now is Smashing Ideas version of design thinking, where it allows us to understand people and their behaviors in various contexts and helps us to generate and externalize thoughts and ideas. And then it also aligns the different stakeholders, so aligning the providers, the administrators, drivers, and riders. So if we take a look at a couple different time frames, so right now, we can say, there's largely ownership of cars, there's largely ownership of vehicles, there's some ride hailing, so taxis obviously been around for a long time, taxi cabs, but also Uber and Lyft, and then there's a mix of public or private, which is generally separate. You're either going to drive yourself in your own car or you're going to take public transportation, bus, train, whatever. In the near term, we're looking at car sharing and having things be multimodal. So having connections between car, bus, walking, scooter, bike, all those things kind of stitched together, and a combination of public services and private services. And far term, we're talking about autonomous vehicles, and Olaf is going to talk about that in just a minute, as well as citywide platforms. So I want to focus in on the near term and focus in on some things that we learned from Reach Now. So for folks who are not familiar with Reach Now is a car sharing plus ride hailing plus reservation service. It's very much like Drive Now, which is in Europe, Car to Go, but it also does Lyft and Uber services. And so what we did for them as part of BMW's experiment into this whole area, Smashing Ideas redesigned and did the front-end code for their iOS app and their Android app. We're pretty happy and proud of it. Here are a couple of things that we learned from it in terms of what design must address in terms of making mobility as a service succeed. So the first thing is around availability. There has to be enough vehicles in a particular area for somebody to say there's a car near me whenever I want to get someplace, as well as not only a car, but also parking. So I need to know that I'm going to have confidence that when I get the car and it's going to be close enough that I can walk to it, that I can also find a place to park it. Second thing is about safety. So I want to make sure that the car that I'm going to be driving is safe. And when we look at like Uber and Lyft, that tends to be one of the downfalls of those services, because you don't have the same level of confidence, because it is somebody that you don't know, and it's not necessarily very well regulated. It also gets into help and making sure that there's strong, robust help systems in cases of accident or other kind of trouble. Third is around parity. So parity compared to owning my own vehicle. So this is really like, how do I move from owning a vehicle to trusting mobility as a service as my primary means of transportation? So the mobility as a service has to meet everything that my own vehicle does today. So it has to be able to do things like take me to places that I go to occasionally, as well as commuting, but also special appointments, doctors, and then entertainment, going out on town on the night, going out to the mountains to go skiing, whatever. But it also has to provide superior value. So it has to be a nicer ride. So getting to drive a BMW or a Mercedes is something that is not necessarily an option for a lot of car owners. So that's something that's kind of like a special and a perk. And so that whole system, like the infotainment system, having the car be clean and smell well, and frankly that turns out to be a big factor, is like that cleanliness within the car. And then also a certain amount of aspirational identity, to be able to say like, yeah, I deserve this kind of car because that's the kind of person I am. We get into costs, and so when we talk about costs, we can talk specifically around dollars. And so saving dollars in things like purchase price, maintenance, repairs, servicing, fuel, insurance, making sure that all those costs are at least at par, if not better. And then having the experience, and this is where a lot of times design, people say design, and we get into kind of like the styling and the interface, and that is critical and it's important. But all these other features are just as important, if not more important, to make sure that the entire experience is a very good and well-designed one. And as you'd expect, things like how to find your car, how to operate your car, it has to be easy. You have to feel like you're in control. It's got to have a caring support system that is available, and it has to be easily learnable. And lastly, all of these things drive into creating a sense of trust. And so it's the designer's job ultimately to create that sense of trust with the drivers and the riders, the users of the system. Just so happens that trust is a big factor when we talk about autonomous vehicles. So Olaf, I will hand it back to you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. So then let's go to the next topic. So this autonomy, so autonomous driving. And this is also quite interesting technology right now. And I think when we are realistic, of course, it will take a little bit more time than electrification. But on the other hand, I expect that it will be then on dedicated areas allowed, maybe in urban areas. And this, of course, is also the future when you are looking about big cities like China, Shanghai, or there's Changchun in the north of China. There are really, really big cities, and they are building up complete new infrastructures there. And I think for this dedicated areas, it's much more easier to establish such kind of autonomous driving. And I think here in Europe, maybe it takes a little bit more time, but what I would like to have it suddenly, because I'm already every day I'm stuck in the traffic jam in the morning and in the evening, and I spend so much time where I can nothing do really productive or relaxing. So this is really a waste of time. So therefore, I think there is from different directions a big pressure to develop this. And as I said at the beginning, that from technology point of view, we have right now everything, right? So the environment is there, the sensors are they're sharing the data of the sensors is there. We have a good camera infrastructure there. And there are a lot of developings ongoing. Also from Luxoft side, we have a dedicated line of business who are working on here, or practice, who are working on this autonomous driving. And what we at Luxoft also in several cases, we are working with Frank Rinderknecht from Rinspeed here together. So this was the Micromax project, what we worked here together. It was also about swarm intelligence in urban traffic, that you can jump in, jump out. It's a mixture between this mobile as a service in combination with that kind of robotaxis. So quite nice combination, to be honest. And you have here also the infrastructure, all the data, what you need, then your music and your work environment, and so on and so on and so on. So, but what we see here with the autonomous driving aspect, also from user perspective, we have here completely different possibilities and also completely different needs from the driver. And this also is a good opportunity, a perfect opportunity from all of the designers, all of the user experts, user experience experts, to come up with a lot of solutions, different solutions. And when you think here, so this is also a nice combination between autonomous driving, but also with 3D printing. So it is only from local motors, what is also a little bit similar to the car from Frank Rinderknecht, what is a couple of years ago developed. But this car is interesting. It's autonomous, it's electrification, and it's printed with a 3D printer in 10 hours. So it's also a quite nice business model here, what also is like a revolution then for the car manufacturers also itself. And so this is also self-driving bus here. But there are different needs, different expectations. Like you see here, maybe you need some, not such kind of public robotaxi. No, maybe in some cases you need some kind of launch atmosphere here. And of course, you have then also a lot of different possibilities, what also influences at the end the user interface here. Or you would like to drive alone in a quite nice environment, but with a small car. Also, of course, has a big influence to the user interface at the end. Or another car, Rinspeed Ethos, what we developed together with Frank Rinderknecht here, when you would like still driving sportive, right? So this is the possibility here. You can drive in autonomous mode, but you can also drive in a manual mode. And therefore, there was also a lot of questions coming up, what we discussed. So it's not only about designing or about user interaction, user experience. No, it's also about question, okay, when you are driving on a racetrack with this car, and you are driving manually, and then the car itself is driving in autonomous mode, who will be at the end better? And the autonomous driving mode, the car itself, so it learns, could be better. Or if the car goes in a washing garage and he decided by itself, so, oh, the washing garage was quite good, I'm absolutely clean, I would like to give a tip to the washing garage by myself, so the car itself, it will be this allowed? Will be this also a business model, a business case? So all of these questions coming up in this area, and we are right now also figure out how this influences at the end the user interface and the user experience. Or the next step, of course, and it's also not so far away, to be honest, it's about this flying cars or this hybrid cars, right? So this is this pop-up. It was a project from Airbus and Ital Design. What quite interesting is, so it's also has something to do with mobile as a service, right? So you can use a classical vehicle as a transport with wheels, but you can also choose here this flying kind of plane here, where you have then this cabin who will take from this flying robot here and brings you to your destination. And all of this has, of course, also some kind of user interfaces, and we have to interact here with this kind of stuff. And what we also right now see when we are looking in this autonomous driving mode, and the primary task will be not anymore driving, so you can really focus on other stuff, then of course you get a lot of possibilities how you can spend your time in the car and how you can also interact in the car. And therefore, what we are right now doing is in some projects, what we are right now focusing on is about this mixed reality. And I will show you some examples here, but we are also at the CES in Las Vegas and have there 2 demos there. So one is together with a customer from our side, and the other one on our own booth. And here you really have to take a test run here by your own, because it's quite difficult to explain how you have this experience. What we see here, this augmented reality, hand tracking and holograms, so this completely change how you interact in the future with your devices. And it's going directly in another direction as you right now using your display or your smartphone. I think right now it's quite stupid, right, to have the smartphone and looking all the time on the small display here in a not really comfortable position, right? And so therefore, maybe in 5 or 10 years, we looking back and say, oh, how could we use this kind of displays here? And therefore, what we are right now preparing ourselves about the potential, about this virtual reality stuff and also the augmented reality. And the augmented reality, okay, there's the HoloLens, of course, on the market, but it's from the technology level, not at this stage that we can really, really use it on an official way. But as we know, and as always, technology is running really fast. And in a couple of years, then we have everything ready. But to be prepared and also to test some kind of use cases, usability stuff, we are right now also focusing here on some kind of new environments and new possibilities to interact. What we are right now using, it's the Oculus Rift headset together with a Leap Motion for gesture recognition. We have some kind of hardware, of course, computer here, and also very common, this Unreal Engine, where we use this for simulation and also for interaction here. And what we build up is a nice environment, of course. First of all, to have this kind of nice futuristic approach. And here at the bottom, you see one example how you could interact here. So this is about the main menu. So you use your gesture, your hands directly, and then you can operate directly, or you can operate directly on the device where you would like to control. For example, the climate menu. Why you have to go in some kind of menus? No, you can go directly to this climate and then adjust it directly on this area. And what the good thing is, I think, you don't need any displays here in this case anymore, right? You see it in a virtual way, and you can interact on all surfaces or not surfaces. So this is also quite interesting. Of course, on the other hand, there are a lot of challenges here, right? Because it's also about the usability, also about the feedback, haptical feedback, for example, and also about, is this really comfortable or not? And so therefore, we are investigating right now a lot of time here. What we see with some kind of use case, and I show you here one example, and You can, when you select, for example, in restaurant, so you can take a look really in the restaurant, and you can, with your hand menu, then look at a table and see, okay, this table I would like to reserve. This is right now not besides the toilet, so this is not at the entrance. No, this is with a quite nice view, and I would like to reserve the table here directly. So it's also a complete new user experience, right? That you have the possibility to take a look directly in this restaurant and how it looks there. We are also operating and make some testing with some smells, right? So that you have also the impression, oh wow, this is quite nice here, or not. So there, this combination with the different senses, it makes here really some really interesting use cases. We have made a video. I don't want to show it here because it's about the performance. Sometimes we recognize that it's it's stocking, and so therefore you can also search on Google Luxoft and virtual reality, augmented reality demo. Then you can take a look, a little bit more detailed look here, or you can visit, of course, the CES, our booth there. Then you can see a lot of other use cases here. One other example is about your environment. You can change your environment on a virtual way. So here you have such kind of nice trees here and this kind of Zen garden. So it's also quite interesting how you can exchange your complete environment. It depends on your mood, right? But you can make it and choose it. Yeah, and this, I think, when we are looking in this future and looking also about complete new solutions, so not anymore related to any displays and so on, then yeah, we come to the point you have really to have this holistic view, right? And not only experts, not only this dedicated designer who is maybe perfect in Photoshop and styling something, some pixels. No, it's more that we see the direction goes to, yeah, from expert to visionary, right? And I like this example from Leonardo da Vinci. So at the end, he didn't want to invent a helicopter, right? No, he had a vision and he wanted to fly here. So this was his vision. And he was a mathematic, he was a physic, he was really firm with chemical stuff and so on. So he was more a generalist, but put all of his know-how together and then got this new, absolutely nice ideas here. And I think this is what we, my experience, have a little bit forgotten, so to think universally. So therefore, I think, so this is the message, what we right now have. Don't start with a solution, no, start with a vision. One example, what we produced here is like, yeah, for example, you would like to sleep in the trees. So why not? And how is this connected to the automotive? Yeah, maybe there is some kind of cars also what you can use. There is a tent integrated in your car, and you have such kind of lift integrated, and then you have such kind of mobile tent sleeping in the tree solution. So it's only, yeah, one example to show you, yeah, it is requested in the future to be more visionary with all of these technologies, with all of the different customer expectations, and of course also with the different trends like this digital lifestyle, electrification, autonomous driving, and sharing economy. So therefore, I think we're coming to the end to the webinar, but of course, Kevin and I, we will be here to answer your questions here, when there are some questions, of course.
Thank you very much, Olaf and Kevin. That was absolutely fascinating. A lot of very large and very interesting questions posed there. We have had some questions, some very interesting questions in. I will be asking as many as we have time for, but if anybody has sent in a question and we don't have time to answer it, Olaf and Kevin will be getting a list of the questions and may well be able to get back to you with answers later on. But for the first question, which is a really big one, is with all of these changes that you've mentioned, how do you think the automotive industry should react?
Yeah, maybe I will start. What we right now see with all these changes, so it's not only what we see, the OEM should not only be focusing on the metal, right, on the exteriors, or on the metal pieces. What we recognize that it goes much more in the direction of a software company. So the OEMs are changing from a really production company, sometimes more in the direction of a software company. And this is also needed, I think. It's necessary to be prepared, because you have to deal with all of the technologies, and there is a lot of software, a part of the software. And at the end, what we see, the OEM is really interested, or should be really interested, on all of the data where they will be produced, right? So they own the data at the end as a car manufacturer there. And this is what we right now see, and a lot of car manufacturers are now moving in this direction, and it is necessary, I think. So from the production company, pure production company, really to such kind of software company, and working more agile way, not anymore in a waterfall way, how it was in the past, right? So there you lose a lot of time. So nowadays you have to be really flexible. You have to really react on the market when there is some changes from the consumer world, for example. You have to react really, really fast, and you have to adapt it. And this you can only to do when you have this kind of agile model. And what we are right now in some projects with our OEM together, we are working there in this way, and we see there are a lot of benefits for both, I think.
Yep, I totally agree. And some of the things that I would amplify are things like the cultural changes at, the car manufacturers, the OEMs, of adopting some of the cultural norms of some like the software companies. If we take a look at so Apple and Amazon and any kind of company where the customer experience is constantly being iterated and constantly being tested, and there's a lot of experiments going on, and making sure that that experience and the holistic experience, and not just one piece of it, is all well orchestrated and all well designed. So from the software piece to the connection into the car, and to how the person is going to be using the vehicle, all of those things kind of tied together. It's a different frame of mind, and I think that's going to be a big change. I also think taking a look at some of the upstarts and the startups and the adjacent companies, and seeing what they're doing, and looking at them as potential partners, but also companies to learn from.
Okay, thank you very much. That was interesting. Another big question for you. You've mentioned autonomy quite a lot. When do you think autonomous driving will become the norm?
Yeah, that's of course a really difficult question. So right now, to be honest, it's a big hype, right? It's everywhere, every day in the newspaper you can read some stuff about autonomous driving, and as usual, a hype when it's on the peak, it takes a while when it will be really, really realistic and on the street. On the other hand, we see different areas there and different countries, and you need there a good environment, of course, right? So there should be a good environment, especially when you are starting. It's really sensitive to autonomous driving, especially when we are looking, when there was some accidents from Tesla in this area. It was quite big tension in the newspapers, but it was only 1 or 2 or 3 accidents, so nothing to compare with what's going on daily on the street, right? So I think it will be a big improvement and a big advantage in the future when we have this autonomous driving, because I think also the drivers who are now driving manually on the car, I don't trust anybody. So it's sometimes really strange. Yeah, but of course it's a sensitive topic there, and therefore I think it will be piece by piece. It will be established first of all in dedicated areas, maybe on on such kind of how should I say it, and on the airport or something, what is on the control, so that there are only autonomous driving cars then there, or there is some dedicated areas in big cities, urban cities, where we build up new and the infrastructures they're building. No manual cars are anymore allowed there. And so I think we will get step by step there to this at the end fully autonomous driving. But this takes years, I think, really years.
Yeah. I would agree, and I would also add that when we talk about autonomous driving, I think we often have a picture in our heads of, us as drivers in a vehicle, and having no steering wheel and having the vehicle drive itself. But I think the step-by-step approach is much more likely to be what we're going to be experiencing for a number of years, and I think it's actually the more interesting place to play. So when we're talking about kind of who is going to be doing the driving, and then if we kind of step down to something where it's more augmented as opposed to autonomous. And so I was talking with our CTO Victor Allen the other day, and he came up with the idea of like, well, what if we had the vision of the cameras on the car, like in a Connect style, understand exactly where the lane is, what kind of conditions, rain, snow, darkness, other vehicles, and use that information to create a heads-up display that covers the windshield, where it shows these are the lane markers, and kind of shows at night a daytime view. So to still have the driving being done by the human, but having that being an augmented experience. And I think that's a much more rich area for us to explore into. And I also think it's going to be the more realistic, kind of consumer driver position. I do agree with Olaf that there are going to be a lot of autonomous bots and other kinds of vehicles for things like delivery of goods. And so trucking, any kind of manufacturing, factories, transportation in terms of the airports, those things can be fully autonomous, but the last bastion will be kind of the driver themselves giving up and relinquishing that control to trust a machine to do it for them. So anyway, the middle area is, I think, is the place that's coming, and it's going to be a lot more widespread, and I think it's a lot more rich for us to kind of come up with interesting solutions.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think from the public, so the public transport, I think this will be also coming a big push from this side. So this will be also, I think, also quite interesting, who pushes the autonomous driving part, with some dedicated lanes or some separate traffic, for example. So when you have here then dedicated areas where the autonomous public transport is allowed. So this will be then also really efficient, and also a big advantage for the customers. And then of course you have then the benefits, you see the benefits, and this will be then like a multiplicator.
Yeah, and that gets into kind of like the governance and the cooperation between the public and the private companies, and different cities, different countries are going to be ahead of that. And so you see things like Finland and the WIM system in Finland, where they have a lot of that public all kind of stitched together in a platform, whereas in other countries, other cultures, it's going to take a lot more time, because there's a lot more players. Like in the US, there's, it's much more divisive between public and private entities.
Okay, thank you very much. That's been very interesting. We've had a lot of interesting questions in, which you will be getting and hopefully will respond to. But we are very nearly out of time, unfortunately. Anybody who wants to download the presentation will be able to very shortly, as soon as it's saved itself and it's populated on our website. But I think we're now going to have to wrap up. Thank you very much to Olaf and Kevin for an absolutely fascinating presentation. There are a lot of very interesting questions and answers in there. So keep an eye on our website, and the whole thing will be available to download shortly. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yep. Thank everybody. Yep. Bye-bye.